So, as we are already over halfway through the year, I thought I'd take my time to give you my top 10 films of the year so far. And so, this will be films that came out between January and the end of June of this year. So, coming in at number 10, I have The Drama. Now, this film and its central premise, once you actually go in and watch the film and know the kind of film it actually is, because the marketing and everything for this film does not at all give away how truly controversial and awkward this movie is. And I'm going to be stressing the word awkward for this film a lot because it perfectly just encapsulates the feeling of awkwardness basically the entire film. Now, Robert Pattinson and Zendaya are the two lead characters who are about to get married, and then they meet up with two of their other close friends who are their like bridesmaid and main groomsmen for their wedding, I believe. Um, and they go have dinner together, play this game, and then Zendaya's character reveals something about herself that immediately shifts the tone of the film the rest of the time into this super awkward, really weird feeling the rest of the way. And watching the film, I immediately, once that particular part was revealed, I was like, oh boy, okay. I gotta lock in and really try and get behind what the rest of this film is going to try and portray and do all of its commentary towards. And I gotta say, the film by the end was one of the best films covering such a controversial topic in a really just good way of not being so overbearing about like why these things happen, but like truly kind of trying to understand why that happens in the world. But then also on top of that, doing that whole debate of couples who are, especially couples who are about to get married, and one of them thinking about starting to have doubts about getting married to that person, that other person, and truly building a life with that person, asking the question, trying to figure out, well, is this person still the way they are, or are they actually a different person and trying to become a better person and are actually a better person? So, yeah, the drama was really crazy but welcome film for me this year. Coming in at number 9, and this was a film I went into with a lot of skepticism, especially after how good the previous films were, and that is Toy Story 5. Now, I know when Toy Story 4 came out, a lot of people were super, like me going to Toy Story 5, had a lot of reservations for that film. And for me, Toy Story 4 I was super excited for it the whole time up to its release and seeing it. And after having seen Toy Story 4, I felt like it was yet again another great ending to that franchise. And so Toy Story 5 coming out, I was like, what are they going to do now? Like truly, what is the idea that's bringing this franchise back for a fifth time, and we get to see all of the characters again of Jesse and Woody and Buzz and all of them. But like, what is that true, like, clever story they're going to tell? And from the marketing, they pretty clearly, immediately through the trailers, were saying we're going to be tackling now kind of modern day of kids playing with toys, but then getting that technology of iPads, particularly iPads, getting introduced to their lives and becoming all the generation that we know in real life today, of really growing up with being on the iPad and making friends through the internet and stuff and talking to your friends through the internet. And so immediately I was like, well, okay, that definitely could be interesting. So I was a little bit more interested by that. And then I went to go see the film. And on top of it being very clever and very poignant with its commentary on children growing up now with technology than actually being face to face with their friends and playing like tons of us did over 20 years ago now. Um, it also had a really great, heartfelt story centered on Jesse, and even having this being kind of like Woody's Toy Story 4 story of kind of closing out her character arc since we were introduced to her in Toy Story 4, where even as we got towards the end of the film, we have a really kind of shocking reveal and a really emotional reveal. Like for me, I was like, wow, I was like almost crying seeing that because it calls back to such a truly great emotional moment and sequence in Toy Story 2 for Jessie, and where she came from originally not being one of Andy's original toys. So, yeah, Toy Story 5 was definitely one of the biggest surprise films for me, but also one of this year's best. Now, coming in at number 8, and I know a lot of people, a lot of you guys watching may not agree with me on this one, but I have Supergirl. And coming off of Superman last year, which for me was the best Superman film that I have seen and is my favorite version of Superman, and then by extension Lex Luthor, and just telling that classic story of Superman versus Lex Luthor, and the whole film just really feeling comic booky and just a lot of fun. And of course, James Gunn was behind that film, and I love James Gunn as director, bringing the Guardians of the Galaxy films and the Suicide Squad from like 6 years ago or 5, 6 years ago now, and all of those films. I love really all of his films that he's done up to this point. And Supergirl, now while not being directed or anything by James Gunn, is the new part of the new DCU, which he is the overhead of. And Supergirl had a small cameo in Superman, and her little sequence in it, just little like couple of scenes, were really fun to see. And so I was excited to see what a full Supergirl film with her in it would be like. And I gotta say, the main actress, Millie Alcock, as Supergirl is really, really good. And the film as a whole, with its central story, and that was very clear also from the main trailer for the film, that it was going to center around Kara, Supergirl, trying to go after these bad guys who end up poisoning Crypto, and she only has 3 days to save his life. And that immediately hooked me because I was like, I do not kill the dog, please. So that immediately hooked me in. And then of course the really fun standout side character of Jason Momoa as Lobo was of course a lot of fun to see sprinkled throughout the film. But at the end of the day, I really thought this was one of the year's best because it really did deliver like everything that I wanted from what this movie promised, of a lot of like really fun action, really good kind of character study into how Kara is feeling, because she doesn't feel connected to like her brother Superman and all of their people from Krypton, but her finding her way while trying to save Crypto's life and connecting with this girl that she teams up with to go and for the girl to try and take revenge against the villains of the film who had killed her parents. Yeah, it was a really fun film that I thoroughly enjoyed. I know a lot of people didn't, but yeah, I did. Now, coming in at 7, this was the film that I had most recently watched just yesterday, and I had wanted to see it ever since it came out, and ever since I saw the trailer for it in the couple months leading up to its release towards the end of May. And that movie is Pressure. Now, if you don't know what this film was and you didn't see any of the trailers or anything for it, this film's main story is about this meteorologist who is hired to help create a weather forecast just a few days ahead of the events of D-Day. And it was one of the most interesting and tense like thrillers that I have seen. And all like the acting, all the acting in the film is so good. Brendan Fraser really is in his like just true comeback form. He delivered another great performance. And then I believe Andrew Scott plays that was his name, something like that. Plays the main meteorologist character that they hire in the film, and he gives a really good kind of dry but like also funny performance while also being serious. And then the main actress in the film, and I'm forgetting her name, but she was also really good as being Brendan Fraser's kind of like kind of love interest it seemed, but like also just kind of best friend and person that he always went to within their ranks and their decision making leading up to the D-Day attacks. So yeah, this film was a really, really good pressure cooker, and just really interesting dive into this like very specific part of one of the most pivotal parts of World War II, and eventually everyone beating the Germans, winning that war eventually. So yeah, Pressure is just really one of the best films of the year that I've seen so far, even though I just watched it. Now, coming in at number 6 is the Michael movie, the Michael Jackson biopic. And I know it's only half of his story, and I'll get into that a little bit. But the film that they did give us was such a blast and such a fun film, celebrating the beginning half of his career, from him being a child star and part of the Jackson 5, to then him starting his solo career and leading up into the early to mid 80s, where then he released Bad, and that's where this film ends. Now, we will get the second half of the film of the rest of the 80s into the 90s and all of that, and that should also be really interesting to see how they try and pull that off, I believe, and hopefully we get that film soon, hopefully next year or sometime soon in the next couple of years. But yeah, this film was just an absolute blast, really just celebrating the music of Michael Jackson, and just the obviously by his nickname, the King of Pop, how truly influential he was. And Jafar Jackson, who is Michael Jackson's nephew, portrays Michael in the film, and he gave an outstanding performance as his uncle. And I mean, he really nailed it. He knew his uncle to a T, of course. And I gotta say, like, for a lot of the performances in the film were really good. But for me, the main two standouts were Jafar as Michael, and then Coleman Domingo as Michael's father, Joseph Jackson. And Coleman Domingo just gives such a great, you just love to hate this guy so much, because he really was such a damaging presence for Michael, and who he grew up to be, and all of the little things that Michael does as he becomes an adult, and some of the decisions he makes as an adult. Yeah, it was a really, really just fun film overall, even though it definitely had some issues, but overall it gave me exactly what I wanted from a Michael Jackson biopic film. Now, coming in at number 5 was a film that I have been waiting for now 7 years, and finally we got it, and it was Ready or Not 2. I am a huge fan of the original Ready or Not. It is my favorite horror comedy of all time. And of course, the directing team and just that team that created it, Radio Silence, went on to direct the Scream 5 and 6 and brought that franchise back after years away. And of course, after Wes Craven's unfortunate death back in 2015, the franchise was like over, especially after his death. But they brought it back, and it was super successful. But I was like, I really wish we could get a sequel to Ready or Not and see what they could do with Grace and what her story could be after this. And man, Ready or Not 2 was basically Ready or Not on steroids. And yet again, we're playing hide and seek, and we get introduced to Grace's sister, played by Catherine Newton, and now both of them are trying to stay alive while being hunted down by this expanded other family that is part of this like ring of rich families who play these games. And it was such a hilarious, awesome blast of a film that I don't think is as good as the original film, but it was certainly a worthy follow up and a worthy sequel where it picks up right where the first film left off, and then continue, and then just the story takes place from there, and we get nonstop bloody action and a ton of hilarious moments all throughout the film. There were a few other stand-up performances that I really enjoyed from the new whole family that we get, that are hunting down Grace and her sister. And yeah, Ready or Not 2 was just such a blast to watch. It features one of the most fun one-on-one fights played along to a song, and that song being um, oh my god, forgetting the song title now, but it was such a fun sequence that immediately was a standout sequence for me in the film. So yeah, it is my fifth best film of this year. Number four is Send Help, one of the first new films that I saw at the beginning of this year. It was Sam Raimi's full return to the horror genre, and of course, Sam Raimi is a legendary horror director who brought us the Evil Dead franchise way back when, and this was his return to that genre and bringing all of his weird, quirky Sam Raimi-isms to the horror genre yet again. And this film was yet again a total thrill ride, and from beginning to end. Rachel McAdams and Danny O'Brien, they give two great performances. This is my favorite performance that Rachel McAdams has given from her career that I've seen. And yeah, she basically plays this really awkward woman who's working at this office firm, and then Danny O'Brien comes in, and he becomes her boss, and he perfectly plays the like really just kind of dickhead of a boss, that like is just so insufferable and but like still charming to a degree, but he's just not a good person at all. And then eventually they go on this plane ride, and the plane gets shot down into the ocean going through a storm. Some of the other associates of the firm are killed during the storm, and then it's just Rachel McAdams and Danny O'Brien's characters stranded on this island for the rest of the film. And that going into the film, I thought it was just I thought like what it was going to be was they'd get stranded on the island, try to survive, but then eventually like try and kill each other by the end. And while that is technically kind of what happens as we get towards the end of the film, it really throws in a little bit more of a even more insane twist, that it becomes even more than just like you go crazy on this island trying to survive, because Rachel McAdams' character is revealed early on to be a huge Survivor fan. For the TV show Survivor, her character is a huge fan of that, and so she brings all of the kind of expertise she gains from watching that show to surviving on the island and keeping both of them alive. But then eventually she really goes crazy and just wants to stay there, keep him there with her, and it just becomes an all-out brawl between the two trying to kill each other. And it was one of the most insane but fun horror film first time watches that I've ever had. And by the end of the film, it's like it ends in like the most strange way, but at the same time you're like, okay, yeah, that I can buy that. So yeah, Send Help was just a great return to the horror genre of Sam Raimi, and such a fun, insane horror survival film. Coming at number three, and I gotta tell you, 1 through 3 for me, I could see so many people just having any of these next three films being their number one, being their number two, being their number three, and just having all three of these films all around in some order. But for me, coming in at 3 is Project Hail Mary. And this was like the first real big blockbuster, um, like really great film that everyone was talking about in the beginning few months of the year. And it was this really great epic space film, starring Ryan Gosling, and it was just such a great, interesting film. Now this movie was based on a book called Project Hail Mary by the same author who wrote The Martian, which was adapted into a film as well, starring Matt Damon from just over 10 years ago, which I love. That's probably my favorite science fiction film that I've seen in my life. And I gotta say, Project Hail Mary, being by the same author, made a lot of sense why I really enjoyed the film. So yeah, it was such a blast of a film, such a really interesting film scientifically, but also really accessible with its entertainment and even just explanations would they give it science wise. But then at the heart of the film, it becomes a really sweet friendship story between Ryan Gosling's character sent into space and this rock creature named Rocky. I believe. Pretty, like 95% positive his name was Rocky. But anywho, yeah, it was just such a adorable friendship that they developed throughout the course of the film. And both of them trying to help each other get back home. And yeah, it was a really, really good, just classic science fiction, fantasy, just great film. Yeah. Coming in at number 2 is The Odyssey. The Christopher Nolan tackling Homer's epic, The Odyssey. And of course, knowing Christopher Nolan, how could you not expect going into it for it to be a truly epic film? And it was. Epic is going to be the word used most to describe this film, because while the story very much is an epic, the film itself also fully encaptures how epic the story is on a cinematography standpoint of just how it's shot from beginning to end is just one of Nolan's best shot films, if not his best shot film. And then all the performances, but particularly for me, Matt Damon, Anne Hathaway, Tom Holland, and Robert Pattinson, he appears twice on this list, all give the best performances for me, while the best smaller performance was the actress who portrays Cersei in one sequence of the film. But yeah, The Odyssey was just an awesome film that immediately after I saw it the first time on its first night releasing, I struggled to find any negatives to say about it, because everything about it, from again how it was shot, all of the performances, all of the action sequences, while that when they're just on a boat in the middle of the ocean, all of the different islands they go to, and the ending of the film, the epic fight of Odysseus returning back home, it was all so flawlessly put together. So yeah, The Odyssey is my second favorite film of the year. But my favorite film so far of 2026 is easily Obsession. Now, Obsession is this ultra low budget independent horror film that got a ton of praise coming out of film festivals towards the end of last year, and got a lot of hype leading up to its release back in May. And after I heard a bunch of positive buzz about it in the first few months of the year, I immediately was like, okay, I have to go see this film, see how, like, why it's so crazy and apparently so good. So I went to go see the film with my friend, and both of us throughout the whole film are just sitting there tense as hell and like jumping all throughout the film at how unnerving but how great the horror of the film is, particularly and of course rightfully due to the star performance of the film, Indy Navarrete as Nikki. And so the film, the main story of the film is this character Bear, who's the lead main male character of the film. He has this really big crush and is in love with his best friend Nikki, and but he's like a total kind of like wuss of a character person who just cannot stand up for himself at all. And so eventually he comes across this one wish willow where you can only make one wish for whatever you want and it comes true. So eventually he wishes for Nikki to be in love with him more than anyone else in the world. And from there, the, the film becomes so intense, so creepy the entire rest of the way. Indy Navarrete just gives an absolute breakout star-making performance as Nikki once the wish is cast, and she just goes full-blown, just insane, going between peeking through as the real Nikki at certain points, but giving all these like really creepy body movements and differentiations of her level of voice throughout certain points when she's yelling at Bear or talking to Bear all throughout the rest of the film. And to that point, like the other two characters that we follow that are like two of Nikki and Bear's other best friends, they also give really good performances. They're also interesting characters to follow. And yeah, Obsession is just a film that like, was made on an under $1 million budget. It was made on a budget of like $750,000, and its opening weekend it made like $17 million. The following weekend it even made even more than that, and then the third weekend it made like around the same or a little more than the second weekend. So it was the first film since E.T. was released in 1982 where its first three weekends, it continued to make more than was expected. Like, it kept increasing in the amount of money it was making instead of decreasing, where we see a lot of, really most films do after their opening weekend. And so it's become this insane, like, just ultra box office success where so many people saw it opening weekend and just kept going back because it's just truly such a great film, because it was built on such a simple concept and executed to perfection on every single level. And I just rewatched Obsession the other day, and I mean, it's still so tense, so creepy, but so well done. Yeah, and it was directed by a guy that came from YouTube and was able to. This was his directorial true feature film debut. Meanwhile, this was Indy Navarrete's like A-list breakout performance. So everyone now knows her. But of course, some people may have known her from the show Superman Lois from a few years back, and some other things over the last several years. But yeah, Obsession is just such a perfect film that by far, and ever since I saw it back in May, it's been my favorite film of the year so far. I have a hard time seeing the rest of the year anything topping this film, and I thought The Odyssey might top it, but for me, still, The Obsession is still my favorite film so far of 2026. So yeah, there you have it. That is my list of my top 10 favorite films of 2026 so far. What's your top 10 favorite films of the year so far? Comment them down below. Do you have any of these films on your list? What other films do you have on your list of top 10 favorites so far? What are your biggest disagreements with my list? I'd love to hear all of that down below in the comments section. And I will see you guys in the next one.